Hello, welcome to CEO Check-In. Today I'm having Lauren Maillian on. She is a branding expert, an author. She just got married. Congratulations, Lauren. And she also just became the CEO of Digital Undivided. Digital Undivided, if you don't know it, is a nonprofit that is dedicated to advancing Black and Latinx women entrepreneurs. So a sister organization with $1 Million Women, and we're so excited to have Lauren on today. And I'm not sure if I mentioned she's also the author of The Path Redefined. She built and sold her first company by the time she was 26 and then became an expert in marketing and branding. She actually has a branding bootcamp. There's so much we're going to learn from her today. I'm really excited. And I see you're already here, Lauren. Awesome. I'm going to bring you on in a second. I'm just going to teach my Go Big tip. If you're new to CEO Check-In, welcome. Every Monday we do live coaching, and on Wednesday we have guests, and today we have Lauren Maillian with us. So I'm going to teach my Go Big tip, and then we'll bring Lauren on. So today's Go Big tip is about branding. It's important that you build your brand early and often. The Go Big tip today is build your brand early and often. Early because often entrepreneurs think, well, I'll wait and think about my brand when my company gets bigger. And in fact, the earlier you think about your brand messaging, your colors, what kind of tone you want to use on your marketing materials, the better it's going to be for attracting the right customers and becoming a bigger, more significant brand. So build early and build often because the landscape is constantly changing. And while your brand values may stay the same and what your brand stands for may stay the same, you might need to redo your branding. I know when I was at Little Pim, my language teaching company, about 4 years in, we redid all of our packaging just to look more modern, more classy, more up to date. And it actually really changed how we sold and got us into some really big national retailers. And it was also around the time we were raising venture capital. So definitely take a look at your brand on a regular basis and think about what changes could I make to stand out from my competitors and to make sure that we're staying relevant and current. And we're going to learn much more about branding today with Lauren. So without further ado, I'm bringing on Lauren. Let's see if be in our favor. There was that big hurricane yesterday and a lot of people are out of power, including my mother up in Connecticut. So, hey, glad you have power.
Hi, how are you?
Good, nice to see you.
I turned on the ring light for you.
Oh, fancy. Looking good, looking good. So you're not like photoed out after your wedding? I felt like you wouldn't want to be on screen for like a month.
Come on, anything for you.
So glad you could be here and congratulations again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you.
So for folks who don't know you, I gave a brief intro, but maybe you could just introduce yourself, and then I have some questions I want to ask you, and I'm sure people who are tuning in have questions for you also.
Amazing. Well, it's just so awesome to be here. And I know when we were catching up the other day, we were having, a big conversation just around, oh my gosh, look at this space, right? Like, look at this industry. Look at the women who have been in the trenches for so long, yourself, myself included. And thank goodness we stuck with it because it's needed now more than ever for women to have women like us out there pounding the pavement, opening doors, helping them build brands and $1 million businesses. So I'm just so thrilled.
And thank you for everything you're doing at Digital Undivided now. Congratulations on the new role. But even before that, you've always been a champion of women. I think we first met on a panel a few years ago. Wasn't it called like Wonder Woman panel or something?
You know where we first met though? That's not where we first met.
Oh, I think I pitched to you. Didn't you tell me that?
At Denver Capital with Little Pim because Peggy from Golden Seeds, you'd been speaking to Golden Seeds, and she's like, you've got to meet Julia. And so so nice. That's where we first met. So it's just
And I'm glad you told that story because I often tell my women when they're fundraising, think of it as friend raising because you don't know who you're going to meet and where they're going to show back up in your life, right? Perfect example.
Yeah,
I love it. Thank you. So yes, please tell everybody what you're all about, and then I can't wait to ask you some questions.
Thanks. So I'm Lauren Maillian. Hi. It's so exciting to be here on this CEO check-in. I see the comments going. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, you got a lot of friends who are like, what's going on? I'm not missing this.
So I've been an entrepreneur my entire career. starting my first business when I was 19, a vineyard that I turned into an award-winning winery and wine brand, and a business that I sold when I was 26. And so when we talk about personal branding, it wasn't really until I was 26 that I had like my quarter life crisis, which also was an identity crisis, which was solved by personal branding, to be quite honest, right? And so I think for so many of us, we have jobs, we have roles in life, paid or unpaid, where we just do them so well, we do them on autopilot, and then we can't imagine our life without them. Even if we hate what we're doing, you still can't like imagine your life not doing it, because you're like, but this is my thing. And so that was that for me. It was like, I'm the winery owner. Like, what else am I going to do? Which sounds ridiculous now because I haven't sold wine in like almost 10 years or had a winery, and I've done so much more. But it really took me a long time to say, like, Lauren, mind shift, opportunity shift.
I am not what I do, right?
Yeah,
like,
I'm not what I
choose
do.
To do the winery, but I may choose to do something else later.
Absolutely. And
yes.
and how do I speak of myself? How do I position myself that gives me the latitude to do just that, right? Because when I talk about entrepreneurship, the excitement and the freedom, the luxury of entrepreneurship to me is being able to do whatever the heck you want, right?
But if you find basically entrepreneurs, we prefer to have the risk headache than not have the freedom.
Absolutely. But then if you find that like you got the freedom, just because we can do something doesn't mean we know how to transition or pivot ourselves to do it, right? Yes, so I think that's the hardest thing. It's like, I can say I'm a great mom. I could be a full-time mommy. I'm a great cook. I could be a full-time cook. I'm a great marketer. I'm a great CEO of Digital Undivided. I'm a great personal branding workshop creator. There's a lot of things. But if we don't tell our story to be able to weave between them, it's really difficult to figure out, like, can I show up like that? Like, are people going to wonder who the heck am I? Well, maybe if you don't have a personal brand that's guiding them on the journey of what's important to you. And I say this all the time, and this is what I wrote in my book, The Path Redefined, is like the best personal brands, the best careers are able to create an ecosystem that allows you to live a life and have a career that is serendipitous by design. Now you're saying, like, what on earth is serendipitous by design? Being able to do everything you want to do without having to say no, because oftentimes we get one opportunity, right? And we're like, oh, this is great, but I have to tell this other one no, because I don't have time, or because it's a conflict, or because they don't really mesh together, or because they're competitive in some way. No, if you've built a brand that's really powerful for yourself, a personal brand, you should be able to do everything you want to do, right? And the opportunity of taking on something new shouldn't come at the opportunity cost of leaving something else behind. And we're able to do that when our life and our career is in harmony because our brand says so, right? So like anything that I do with women, I can be here with you right now, and I can, have been running Digital Undivided all this morning and like still on a call at 1 o'clock. It all flows. Personal branding bootcamp, empowering women, helping women win, advising on marketing.
But how did you get to that clarity, Lauren? Because you make it look easy, and I think a lot of women watching are feeling like, well, how did you figure that out? So I would be curious, when you first decided, okay, I'm going to build my personal brand. I am not synonymous with this winery. Like, my life is going to be much bigger than that. Did you go get training? Did you just fall on your face a bunch of times and then figure it out? Like, how did you figure it out?
So I'll go back into the story. So we'll go back to the story when I was 26, 9 years ago, selling my very first business. I then started angel investing in tech startups, many of which were women-led businesses at the time, before we had a focus on investing in women, before we had a focus on diversity and technology and venture, any of these things, before there were hashtags, before it was cool, before there was hashtags, before these things mattered to the outside world. And so I started angel investing. And then through my angel investing experiences, I became so exposed to the venture landscape and what's required. And at the same time, I was starting my second business. I was starting the marketing company that I still have today, with a focus on wine and spirits because of the success of the company I had just sold, and then moved into fashion accessories and jewelry and other lifestyle categories to do branding and marketing work for. So starting my marketing company, LMB Group, at the very same time that I started angel investing, opened my eyes to just what opportunity was. And at that point in my career, I was like, okay, Lauren, let's not put all of our eggs in one basket. Like, this is the beginning of diversification, right? So in order to diversify, you have to make some investments. Sometimes you have some wins, sometimes we have some losses, but how else can we figure out what we want to do if we don't try? So there was a period of exploration, which was also many iterations of who is Lauren? Like, am I the marketer? Am I the VC? Am I the angel investor? Am I the advisor? Am I all of the above? Now, luckily, we're able to kind of use a catch-all called innovation. And all of them fall into, brand innovation.
But who helped you with that? I mean, I'm curious. Let's just press pause there at that moment in your life when you're like, okay, I'm going to give myself this flexibility to do all these different things. Did you do an exercise? Did a mentor sit you down and say, hey, Lauren, here's what I see about you. Your strong suit is this. Or how'd you figure it out?
So much of my life is kind of working in reverse. And it was really like a working in reverse exercise. It was me being really vulnerable and transparent with few people in my life. One in particular, Selena Cuff, who was my very first client with my marketing company. I had met her prior when I had my vineyard and winery. They had a large import-export business of South African wines. She was my first and major client at that time. And when I said, what am I going to do next? She was like, you're thinking too small. Like, you're thinking way too small. So she pushed me.
I love that.
And she really pushed me to think differently about what I was capable of doing. And she was also very clear with me on, like, Lauren, we are working together to do this because you're awesome at that. But I see you as so much more. So when you're ready to outgrow us, please outgrow us. Like, I'm not afraid of you outgrowing us, but I am afraid of you not realizing how much more you can do. And that really hit me. Like, literally, I was like, well, girl, what else can I do? Like, what do you see? Like, what do you think I can do?
You see? Yeah, turn that
I think
around,
I can, yeah, because like,
what you see.
Yeah, exactly. And so sometimes we need people in our lives and our careers who can sit back and observe us with no ulterior motive of their own, other than to say, you're underperforming over there. Like, there's white space in your life. There's white space in your career. And I don't know where your head is right now, but it's over there.
I love that. And you and I are both in the position where we help women dream bigger, right? That's your job at CEO. CEO is Digital Undivided. That's what I do at $1 Million Women. And it's always a surprise to me when I get in that conversation with the women of like, how big could this be? And let's dream it out. And you know what the first thing they always say is, Lauren, I've never thought of that, right? Yeah. No one's ever asked me that.
Because we get bogged down. Right? You get bogged down, as I was saying before, whether we like what we're doing or not, we program ourselves. And it's really hard to program yourself to take a step back. And oftentimes even, and this I realized with my book, so I'm still answering the question a little slowly, but we're getting there.
That's okay, we're getting there, I love it.
Building up to it. When I wrote my book, that's really what did it for me. Because it was, so I've had like 2 identity crises in my career. So that was the first one. Selling the winery was just like a wake-up call. It was like, who am I? But I didn't feel it was a crisis. I just felt it was a crossroads. But I didn't think that it was a big deal. I was like, okay, time will pass. I'll figure it out. With the book, when I ended up having 3 unsolicited offers to write the book and ended up writing The Path Redefined, published by BenBella, they're awesome partners. The publisher, Glenn Yeffis, said to me, Lauren, so do you want to be on the cover of the book? Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, be on the cover of the book? Like, why? Like, why would I do that? You know? And he's like, well, I mean, how do you want? And it was interesting because I had these 2 other unsolicited book offers and I declined them because they weren't going to allow my story to be authentic. So I said no. Now you'll ask, like, well, what did that mean? What that meant was the editing rights, the final say-so, the ability to like fictionalize aspects of my story were like part of the contract. And I just said,
that's disturbing.
Not working for me. No, thank you. Right. So,
and may I say, in part, you were able to answer that with confidence because you knew what your brand was about. Maybe not every single detail of it, but you knew that you were about authenticity, right? That was core to who you are. So this is, I'm just teasing out for our listeners, one of the benefits of knowing your brand and being really proactive about determining what your brand is it creates a filter that you can put decisions through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so in doing that, and working with BenBella, the other reason that I went with BenBella is that a lot of the other publishers who are really interested in publishing a book, and meanwhile, I did not write a treatment. Most people are out there writing a treatment and a sample table of contents. I hadn't done any of that because I had these offers coming to me. But what was interesting is that the offers were also coming to me And I was asking questions they weren't expecting me to ask. And some of those questions, quite frankly, had to do with portrayal of race and how they intended or wanted to portray me as a Black woman. And I didn't like the way that I could have been pigeonholed or portrayed by these other potential publishers. And so when there came this opportunity on how do I want to deal with being a Black woman, because you have to remember, my book came out in 2014, right? Instant bestseller day it came out. But just to remind the audience, this is when Sheryl Sandberg was coming out with her second edition of Lean In, which was Lean In for Graduates, skewed towards millennials and college graduates. I had my book, The Path Redefined, Getting to the Top on Your Own Terms. Ariana Huffington had Thrive. Sophia Amoruso had Girl Boss. Like, this was that moment, right? And there was no other woman, anyone of color in that space. And so I was like, okay, like, here we are. We know what books are coming out. And so we had a really honest conversation about like how I wanted to be portrayed as a Black woman. Like, I wasn't going to talk about race in the book. And so it was like, no, we're just going to put you on the cover. We're just going to like acknowledge the elephant in the room, but we're going to portray you as who you are, right? So Birkin bag in hand, you know, tall, powerful stance in the city. Like, I can be every woman. Like, if I say you can redefine your path, let's redefine your path however you want to do it. But that to me was interesting, because it was like, okay, well, what do I want to portray on the cover of this book? Because that cover is going to be out there forever. My kids are going to see it.
And connect that to brand for us, because I know for you it's so clear, but let's just connect the dots for the people listening.
Connecting dots. I had someone tell me my skirt was too short. They weren't my audience though, right? I'm like, well, but it was intentional actually. I mean, this was an older, more mature person that was like, I think your skirt should be at the knee. But this isn't a book for women who need to wear skirts at the knee. This is a book for women who want to like redefine their path. So
I love that. That's such a great concrete example, right?
Right? Like, you can wear the short skirt. You can be a boss in the boardroom. You can command respect. You can be well educated. You can have board seats. Like,
yes, you can be sexy and powerful and a mom, right? We're both
all of that, and I'm a
public about our role as moms.
Yeah. I'm mom to 2 children. Like, you can be all of that. Like this. And so while I heard that advice or that feedback, I said, okay. I can see the comments are popping, but I'm not able to be engaged and read at the same time.
I'm going to read them, and I want you to finish that thought, but I'm also noticing that you have to sometimes piss people off, right? When you define your brand.
I think
sometimes you do.
I don't think I pissed that person off, but what I had to do with that person was explain to them why this book was going to be different, and explain to them the stereotypes that need to be demystified and that I was wanting to kind of break down by writing the book, and where I felt my presence in the space for women, and then for the double minority for women of color, could be most powerful. And like, the last thing I was going to do, because I wrote my book in 2014, it came out, I was 29. I wrote it when I was 27 and a half till 28. I was 29. It's like, hello, I'm not like 59, you know, like, and even if I'm going to
wear a short skirt if I want.
And even if I was, I'm going to wear the short skirt, right? Like, if that's what I want to do. The whole point is, we should not, like, who's telling men that they can or can't wear, you know, double-breasted or 3-piece suits or summer shoes or whatever the heck that they want to do, or that they can or can't golf at certain times. Like, women get only but this much freedom in the workplace, and like, I'm committed to being able to use it. So that was, for me, one of my, no, I'm going to stick to who I am. And it was a risk. And that is a risk that you take with your personal brand of like, not everyone is going to like, love, and support you unapologetically showing up as the fullest version of yourself. Some people won't like it.
Well, and by the way, isn't that part of building a brand, a personal brand, is that you have to know who you're appealing to and who you're not trying to appeal to, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's true that people can get caught up in thinking I have to please everyone. Yep. And that was a great example you just gave of, no, this woman didn't like the skirt, but the book really wasn't for her. It was for the people who would look at you in the short skirt and be like, yeah, I want to be like her. So how do you teach that to women? Like, in your branding bootcamp, how do you help them come up with, you know, this is what I'm about, right? And this is what I'm not about. And how can people listening even start that process if they want to get going? Because I love these to be like actionable tips if there's any.
Yes. So in terms of getting going, my personal branding bootcamp is over at straightupandsuccessful.com. So that's separate from anything else that I've got going on with Digital Undivided.
Yeah, it's in your link tree, I noticed, of Instagram.
Yes.
You can find it in your link tree.
Yes. We just want to create that differentiation there. But in personal branding bootcamp, we spend a lot of time talking about how vulnerable we want to be. Like, how much of our true selves do you want to reveal? And do you feel comfortable sticking to? We spend a lot of time figuring out what you want to be known for, which is different than what you do, right? A lot of people think what they want to be known for is what they're doing, and it's often not, but we have to take the time to break that down. And the other thing that we spend a lot of time doing is what I call week one is our kitchen sink week, where we like put every single experience into the kitchen sink, whether it was paid, unpaid, whether we volunteered, interned, whatever it was, that we put all of our experiences into the kitchen sink and then figure out where and how and why they have value for our personal brand. And the other thing that we do is take a really deep dive into what makes us most unique by, again, working backwards and figuring out, like, what are you most insecure about? Like, what is it about you that nobody knows because you're afraid to share it? And then we examine, you know, however many things we've got to work with, but normally 3 to 5, right? That are our deepest insecurities, our biggest fears, the critiques that we've gotten our whole life, whether it's been personal or professional, that, you know, makes us cringe inside, makes us feel small and important, whatever it is.
Yeah, this sounds like some really deep work you're doing with these women. Is it over the course of several weeks, Lauren, or how do you do that?
It is. It's over 4 weeks. So the Personal Branding Bootcamp Intensive is live with me, 2 90-minute sessions for 4 weeks. So 8 sessions live, plus classroom work, homework, self-assessments, and like 115-page personal branding Bible that actually guides you through all of this work, everything to your core values and your brand morals, establishing your trademark statement, which is what I like to basically refer to as your personal elevator pitch.
Ooh, what's your trademark statement? Can we hear yours?
Oh, my trademark statement is, hi, I'm Lauren Maillian. I am a women's empowerment advocate, an award-winning marketer, brand strategist, and investor. I am the founder and creator of StraightUpAndSuccessful.com, which is a community of programs and space for high-achieving, ambitious women. And I'm also the CEO of Digital Undivided, which is a social startup that catalyzes the genius of Black and Latinx women in spaces of innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm also a best-selling author and a keynote speaker.
I love that. And the fact that you teach women to do that is so powerful because, you know, I know you've angel invested and you've heard lots and lots of women give their pitches. And I have 2 organizing pitch competitions and my own experience fundraising. And I've noticed that so many women kind of bury their power at the end. Like they'll say up front, well, I'm running this company. And then at the end, they might mention, oh, and I have a PhD from Stanford, right? Instead of owning it like you're teaching to put it up front. I love that.
And the other thing, yeah, thank you.
And then I have a question. Say it, and then I have a question.
Okay, awesome. And then the other things, I'll say 2 things quickly. The other thing that we do in Personal Branding Bootcamp is not just creating the trademark statement by itself. So like that's a statement. But then what I teach my students to do is to actually back those statements up. So like we can say, oh yeah, I'm an award-winning marketer, but for who? Who have you worked with? What awards have you received? Where has your work been featured? Who's endorsed you? So very quickly following up that trademark statement with what I call your qualifying statement, so that no one ever has the opportunity to question your credentials, your integrity, like, oh yeah, she thinks she's the bomb because, well, when you start putting facts behind it, like you say, well, I worked at Goldman Sachs, I worked at Google, I've had clients like Walmart and L'Oreal, and I've been on the board of directors at, you know, this institution, and I sit on an advisory board at the Met, then people start, oh, all of a sudden they listen, right? And we've seen that.
But that can be hard to do for yourself, right? A lot
of people very hard to do.
It's very hard to do. To help them with that. Absolutely.
It's very hard to do, and it's hard to do because a lot of women also think it's boastful. They think it feels elitist.
Well, we are socialized not to put ourselves forward, right? We're so good at promoting other people.
So I flip that. I flip that whole approach.
I love that.
And I flip it into, basically, again, working backwards, like how are you going to literally spoon feed your greatness to other people so that they know how they can work with you? Amazing. That's all it is. That's all it is.
And I love what you said before about you are not your company, right? Because you can build a personal brand that transcends many different aspects of your career. I mean, I'm on my 4th career, right? Like you have pivoted many times. I was a filmmaker. I was a nonprofit fundraiser. Then I ran Little Pim, and now I'm a scaling coach. But, you know, my personal brand was continuous throughout that. So here's the question I get a lot that I want to ask you from the women in our $1 Million Women community. So you're building your company, right? Maybe you're at 400,000 or 800,000. You're on your way to that magic $1 million mark. And you're wondering, do I invest more in the personal brand, in the business brand? How do I know how those two intersect? Right, this year at the $1 Million Women Summit, one of our keynotes was Lauren Brill, who runs
Sweet Lauren. Yeah,
right? I'm sure you know her. She's awesome. And I think she's done a tremendous job because she's got her personal brand, which tells her personal story of, overcoming cancer and why she wanted to create a healthy cookie alternative. And then the company brand, Sweet Lauren's, which is just all about the business. She shows up in there, but it's got its own identity. So if she ever leaves and does something else, right, the two could be separated. Yep. So how do you help women think about that personal birth versus the company? So
two answers. One is in personal branding bootcamp, I actually ask women this exact question. Are you coming here for A, B, or C? A is to build your personal brand. B is to find a way to put yourself in a position of leadership and influence to be able to create your professional brand. And bucket C is I want to do both. Like I need to establish my personal brand, but I also want to establish my business brand where I'm utilizing the social capital and the influence of who I am individually to propel the business. But I do want them to be able to sit independently because there might be some things I want to do over here as an individual that don't speak to my business. And I don't want to feel like I can't do them. Right. So I ask everyone to choose so that I have the right lens for the conversations that we have in terms of what their needs are.
And what's one of the things that helps them with that? Like if someone's watching going, I don't even know how I would choose, like how do they choose?
Yeah, it depends on I think it really depends on the sort of business that you have, right? So if you're a realtor, as an example, it's really hard. Like you are your business because you are also your salesperson. You know, they are very much intertwined, but who you are as a great realtor, you might take it to one firm, another firm, you might switch offices or brokerages, you might start your own. But those two are going to be pretty intertwined, right? So if I were Lauren Maillian, just the women's advocate, it would be really hard to separate that from me individually because I've got the book, I've had the TV show, I've got straightupandsuccessful.com. But because I do so many other things, it is important to separate the two into saying, this is, and so how I personally separate them as an example is, helping women succeed is my calling. So while it is a business extension of the way that Lauren Maillian can show up, that's not my core business, but it is my calling and something I still love to do. And when you understand who I am as a person and a woman, then you absolutely understand why ensuring that we have a diverse and inclusive future, which includes all women and then the double minority women of color, you don't feel like I'm distracted when you know that that's not my core business, but it's what I'm really passionate about doing, right? So it's like how you also, because this is a couple things I want to say. One is I think that as really ambitious women, myself included, I'm often correcting people who say something along the lines of, oh my gosh, you have so much that you do. And it's like, first of all, you just read like a 6-paragraph, 1-page full bio that is 16 years of experience. Like I am not doing all of these things simultaneously right now today. Like I'm not like filming a TV show, writing a book and raising kids and like you're reading a synopsis of 16 years. And I think it's important that women find confidence in correcting people sometimes, because if people think that you have so much going on, they count you out because they start speaking for you or assuming what time you do or don't have for anything that they might want to consider you for. And then you just don't get considered because they're like, oh, she's just so busy.
So it can actually work against you, like that you're in too many things or that.
Well, I mean, imagine, Julie, if everyone thought that you had all 4 of your jobs and you were still doing all 4 right now. If they're like, oh yeah, she's doing a film. Oh yeah, she's still doing Little Pimps. Oh, she's got $1 million thing. She's scaling, she's coaching. And she's
you're right. And that's why the
like,
trademark statement is so important, right? Because then you can help other people understand how your story fits together.
Yeah. And what's current experience and what's previous experience, I think is really important. And then just going back.
And let's also tell our audience that we have about 5 more minutes. And if you could ask your questions in the comments, that would be great. And I will scroll through and see if we have them, because you have so much incredible wisdom to share. This is awesome. And I'm just going to check for questions.
I'm going to say one more thing quickly on going back to the question you asked me before about branding and positioning. And I had said that I'd had kind of 2 quarter life crises. The second one I didn't get to touch on. And the second one I think was really important for me because it was when I dropped my former last name. And that's when I did the TV show. And
that's a big branding decision.
It was a very big branding decision because it involves my URL, it involves my entire inbox, it involves my social names, it involves who I commit to being for the long run going forward. This sounds so bad to say, but like I cringe even looking at like old press. Like I have some Forbes pieces that are super dope and they say my old name on them. I'm like, ugh. And so it was a really conscious decision. And I remember going back to my agents at Endeavor at the time, and also going to Fremantle, who we were negotiating with, who produced the show, and the team at NBC, saying, hey guys, is it okay? I really I see you guys are putting a lot behind the show. I just did the book. I don't know. I think I want to drop my former married last name. And it was interesting because it had been a personal decision as a woman, as a mom, to keep it. So that was a personal mama bear, I want my kids and I to share the same last name decision that then no longer felt right. So I even went to my children for permission to say, hey, Jaden, hey, Chloe, is it okay?
How are you going to feel if I do this?
Yeah. Is that okay? Yes, mama, please. Because I was a single mom. They were like, at that age, they were like, yes, mama, we get it, please. Cool. I had their blessing. But then to do that to NBC and Fremantle, and my team at Endeavor was like, oh my God, are they still going to want me? Are they still going to want me? And you know what? It was all for nothing, because they were like, whatever name you want, Lauren, just do us 2 favors. Please keep the same name.
Don't change it again.
Like whatever you choose, like we love you. It's not, right. We're not tied to the name. Like we love you. A. B, which was funny, they were like, we love all your hairstyles, but please just pick one for the TV show for purposes of filming throughout the season.
Hilarious.
You can change it next season.
Your Instagram, I was like, wow, she's gotten to be like
so many hairstyles. So many hairstyles. I don't know which one to choose. So those are the things. So, but I think that name is also really important. And when we talk about brand identity and what makes us feel scared, I mean, that for me was a reminder that the proof is always in the pudding. So like, don't get caught up in my name. So I spent all this time hemming and hawing, wondering if they would accept my proposal. I'd even put together a proposal. They were like, why did you do this? Like, do what you need to do. We'll change the contracts. No problem. You are who you are, Lauren Maillian. But it was a really big decision. And it was also a really powerful reminder that when you do good work, you get the freedom to continue showing up as yourself.
That's so powerful. And I'm so glad that you also address something that we rarely address as women, which is that when women get married, they often disappear behind a new last name. Like there are people I can't even find anymore I went to college with because they took their husband's last name. It sounds like you had both for a little while. You had your name and your ex-husband's name.
I did.
And it's funny, my ex-husband, I'm also divorced, wanted me to take his last name. And I said, well, why don't we give it to the kids, which we did. And I kept my name, but I did on Little Pim, the product, put Julia Pimsler and his last name. So that was like my nod to it. So I can really relate to what you're talking about, which is like, how do you navigate all this? And I did have some interviews that were under the 2 last names, same as you, but nobody talks about this stuff. So thank you for bringing it up.
It's important. It's important.
It is. And look, our personal lives are a huge part of our brand if we want them to be, and sometimes even when we don't. And then we have to make some conscious decisions about what we bring over into our company. And look, I could talk with you about this all day, and I'm so grateful you've made the time. I know
I'll come back for a naming
I think we have to have you back. This was awesome.
With alcohol.
Exactly. We need a glass of wine, and we just celebrate too your big weekend. And I know we have a lot of people coming on asking questions that are about growing their business. So I want to invite folks who haven't been to CEO Check-In before, this Instagram Live, to join us Mondays at the same time. We do live coaching about scaling up your business. And Wednesdays, we have guests like I'm so thrilled to have Lauren today. So Lauren, you have a question in the chat I want to put to you, and then we'll jump off. Marie is saying, as a new startup, when is the right time to hire and assign roles? Can one individual do it all by themselves? And let's assume she means in terms of, doing your branding. Let's focus on branding, because we could stay here all day talking about that in general.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we're focusing on branding, I would say one person, and I would say that if you're starting, I would start with yourself. And before I go hiring people, and something that I do actually as an exercise as part of personal branding bootcamp within the Straight Up and Successful program, is to actually ask you to solicit feedback from people who are close to you and not so close to you personally and professionally, to see what their opinion and perception is of who you are, to find what those disconnects are. Because people can spend all the time they want posturing, I'll call it, positioning and posturing yourself. But if you're not answering the disconnects for your audience, you're still not accomplishing what you want to accomplish. And I tell people in Personal Branding Bootcamp, I'll help you become whoever it is you want to be. So if you want to pivot your career and become a baker or a writer or a banker or whatever, the world is your oyster. But still, it depends on what people think. So if you want to pivot to finance for your personal brand, and this is going to be your new career, and you're already in finance, but people don't think that you're great at what you do, or people don't really understand what you do, we have to close that gap in order for you to be taken seriously going into finance. Now, different if you studied finance and you were a baker and you're like, wow, I'm so good at my books from baking that I've decided that I want to go into finance full time for restaurants. We still have to tell that story. But if nobody knows that in addition to being a baker full time, you're also your own bookkeeper, there's still going to be that disconnect, right? So I spend a lot of time asking that you kind of farm out these questions to people around you, both close and not so close, because sometimes, I even look at myself. My own family doesn't always get what I do. They're not my audience, but I understand that I need to explain to them differently what I do for them to understand what I do. But
I love that. And I remember when I was learning to pitch, someone suggested that I pitch my company to someone and then ask them to pitch it back to me. Yep. And see what they understood. And so I imagine that would be an interesting exercise too, right? If we had more time, I thought it might be fun actually for me to tell you how I see your brand, and you can tell me how you see my brand. Here, let's do that. Let's end with that, because that'll be fun. Because we did not rehearse this.
I love it.
Right? Because it's true that you can think your brand is all kinds of things, but if you ask an external party and they're like, oh, I didn't even know you were a mom, right? We have a woman in our community who's a former TV show newscaster, and a lot of people don't even know that about her, right? So is that doing her a lot of good? I don't know, right? If she hasn't built up her personal brand to include that. Yep. Okay, so here's what I see in your brand, and you tell me mine, and then we'll jump off. Okay, and wait, but first, before we do that, how can people find you, Lauren? If they want more, I know more people want more Lauren on this check-in, so how do they find you?
Thank you. I'm at Lauren Maillian on social media everywhere, so at LAUREN MAILLIAN, and then straightupandsuccessful.com.
Love it. Okay, and this will be on Instagram TV, and we also post it to YouTube. So people will be able to find you there. All right, so when I look at your brand, I see a very powerful, sexy, confident woman who's not afraid to wear a little bit edgy things that look almost like a model. Like you look a little bit like a model to me. Maybe you were a model, I forget. And you're very smart, and you're not apologetic about being smart, and you're a mom, and you love your kids, and you love to have luxury because life is for living, and you love to celebrate, and you're joyful, and you love to bring your sisters along with you on that ride, and you're not afraid to call people out and say, hey, we got to do things differently. And you're certainly all about social change. You post a lot about, how can we close the economic and racial gender gap. I remember seeing the picture of you with John Lewis, who you ran into at the airport, on your Instagram. So those are some of the things I would say about your brand. Does that sound like what you're trying to convey?
Yeah, for sure. I think the only thing I would add, well, you said it in your own way, but that I'm just such a fierce advocate for the advancement of women. And that's just that becomes more and more important to me every single day, especially
with your new role at Digital Undivided. You were already doing it in your personal life, and now and I know you were on the board, so you were doing it. And that's what I meant when I said an advocate for closing the economic, racial, and gender gap. So absolutely, I see.
Yeah, you hit it.
All right, unrehearsed. Go, my turn.
So unrehearsed, Julia Pimsler, you are consummate professional. I would say that you have, across your 4 careers, and thinking back to when I first met you through Peggy over at Golden Seeds, a persistent, professional, timely, I'll say persnickety, but I mean that in the best way, because I think I'm persnickety too. I think it's a really good quality.
Type A. I call it type A.
Yeah, we can say type A. But I like, but I said persnickety because I feel that you know how to turn it on and off, right? Sometimes it's a little cheeky. Sometimes it's really poignant. And I think you know when you can like be a little cheeky, like, hey, you know, it's like when you write someone an email and then you're like, well, actually, we talked about this the other day, right? Like reminding someone of what your last interaction was, which to me was like a little cheeky, but awesome because it's necessary. We need to remind people of like their last touch point. I think you're incredibly thorough. I think that your passion for advancing all women in business comes across really strong as like, I want to help women make money. So I think your approach to helping women create wealth by being able to create revenue that they own. I like that you've coined yourself as a scaling coach because I feel like that is exactly what you do. And I feel even from the feedback I've heard from other women that I know have been a part of your programs prior as well, like sometimes that scale comes by way of money and sometimes that scale comes by way of like big opportunity for their businesses. And I'm actually thinking back to Shantae and something that she said to me when she was working with you about like, wow, what opportunities came. So I think you help women scale. And maybe this is something you might want to consider throwing into your brand. And I apologize if I missed it and it is somewhere, but I think that there's also, I think when you say scaling coach, it can be revenue, footprint, opportunity, but I also think it encompasses mindset. Like I think you're helping women think in a scalable way. And I think before that we were saying to women, or at least I was probably saying a lot to women, like think like a man, right? Like how do the boys think? And so I think that you
why should they own scale? We want to own scale. Right.
And so I think you bring a very powerful, women focused, feminist approach to scaling and how you're able to create systems around scaling so that, because what I get a lot from your brand is scaling doesn't mean necessarily driving yourself into the ground. And that comes off in that comes off to me in your brand for sure, that by way of scaling is also increasing life ROI. And so I think of you as like increasing life ROI.
Oh my God, I love that. Life ROI. Can I borrow that? Do I have to go
take
to
it.
branding bootcamp
Take it.
if I want to use
take
that?
it. Can I get a little credit though? Can I get a little credit for the 30 days? All right.
Absolutely. As Lauren said, I'm going to increase your life ROI.
That's what I think of you.
I feel so seen. Thank you so much. That was like a huge gift. And also validating because like you, I have spent so much money, time, and energy, right? Trying to like build the brand, not because like we're egomaniacs, but because like we want to get stuff done in the world. And people are busy. And if you don't make it clear for them what you're all about, how are they supposed to remember? I can't remember what half of my best friends from college are doing, right? So how are we supposed to remember? So yes, thank you so much. And for all the work you're doing, helping women to tell their stories, their trademark statements. I love that. If you're with us today and you want to learn more about personal branding, go to Lauren on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and she can tell you more about her personal branding bootcamp. They can find it right in your link tree, right?
Yes. And straightupandsuccessful.com, all spelled out. I keep it straight up so they can be successful. So straightupandsuccessful.com.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to see what you'll do at Digital Undivided. We're excited to partner with you in a variety of ways at $1 Million Women. And just thanks for taking the time so we could all learn from you.
This was so fun. I would love to do it again soon.
We will.
We'll do the naming talk is important. We got to do that.
Well, I would love to see more women sit down and say like, hey, here's what I think your brand is about. Here's what I think your brand is about, right? Yeah, and just see like, is that what you hope they would say?
Yeah. Good stuff.
Awesome. All right. Have a great day. Nice to see you, Lauren.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye. Loved it. Bye. What a great episode. That was so fun to have Lauren on. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. And if you haven't done much work on your personal brand, maybe it's time to go check out her branding bootcamp. And if you're interested in learning about scaling your business, then get in touch with us at $1 Million Women. You can find me through Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, the works at Julia Pimsleur. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you back here on CEO Check-In for some live coaching Monday at 12 noon Eastern. Bye.